Hi guys, welcome to our material lecture for Unreal Engine. So in the video later, right, if I do mention something called Quixel Bridge, right, I might mention it later in the video. So if I do mention Quixel Bridge, I mean fab, right, which is here, fab. You will see Quixel Bridge here. So if you see me using something called Quixel Bridge, it means fab, right? We've changed Quixel Bridge to fab. Okay, so again, if I mention Quixel Bridge, it means fab. Okay, so what fab is, or Quixel Bridge, what was Quixel Bridge is, it's a platform where you have materials and assets for Unreal Engine, right? So if I do open fab, right, you sign in first, make sure you're signed in, and then in here you want to maybe search for a material. So let's try concrete, right? So there's a lot of concrete material that pops up. Usually the sphere ones are the materials. Okay, so you find one material that you like, that you think you want to use for your house. So maybe this one I can use, this smooth concrete. Okay, so if I pick the smooth concrete, once you select it, you will see there's a few quality of material. This is full HD, this is 2K, this is 4K, this is 8K. Okay, depending on your computer, I suggest if your computer is a bit slow, you can use the low quality. Right, I'm just gonna pick the 4K material, so I'm just gonna add to project. Once you do, you will see it will download and import to your project. You can minimize your fab, and then you will see your material will show up here under a folder called fab mega scans, and then your material will be here. As you can see, this is a material instance. Okay, we will talk about this in a bit, but for now let's just apply the material to our walls. So you just have to drag the material and drop it to the walls, right? So drag and drop, same here, drag and drop. And so whatever you want to apply the material, you just have to drag and drop. As you can see, the material has like imperfections and all those things, so to make it look as real as it can be, but you can always adjust them. So if I do open this material, you can see there's the tiling, right? I'm sure you're familiar with this. Tiling means how big of a scale it is, right? So you just see what you want. Offset will move it left or right, right? You will just move it, okay, up or down. You can change the saturation. You want to make it darker or paler, it's all up to you. Contrast also same thing, right? So you just play around a bit with it to see what it does. If you want to make it darker also you could, right? I'm just gonna leave it at default, right? So that's for concrete. You can find other materials on fab. So maybe like stone wall, or any rough concrete for maybe the floor. You can just search for it, download it, import to the project, and drag and drop on whatever you want, right? Next, maybe we can do gloss. As you can see, Unreal Engine has something called a starter content here. Okay, so you have the starter content. If you open that starter content folder, you see here there's a material folder. Open the material folder, you can find all your materials down here. Here, let's search for gloss, right? So you won't have this gloss balustrade, you will just have a simple gloss material. Okay, so you will have only this one. So in here, same thing. For example, if I apply this material instead of an instance, so if I drag and drop this here, you can see it added the material to the gloss. But the thing is, if I open this material, I don't have any controls over it. It's only these nodes. You can control them through the nodes, but instead of every time opening the nodes, changing the settings, it becomes annoying. So you just close this. What you do is you right click on the gloss material, right? So right click, you will create a material instance. In here, I'm gonna call this MI for material instance, and then I'm just gonna leave it at gloss. Once you've done this, you have MI gloss, drag and drop on your material, that on your mesh that you need the material to be on. As you can see, since it was created from this main material, it looks the same as the main, right? The instance will look like the same, like this one. But from this one, if you double click on it and open it, you can see it doesn't open the nodes, but instead it opens controls over the material. So if you on all of these controls, here you can change things. Okay, I don't want the color to be bluish, I want it to be more transparent, so I could change it here. If you want to make it reddish, greenish, it's up to you, right? I'm just going to make them a bit more transparent so I can see what's happening inside the house, and then I'm gonna go okay. Here you can see the opacity. If you want to make it more opaque, all these things, you can change, you know, all these settings, right? You can play with the refraction, right? You can see at the back what's happening. That's for the refraction, which I don't want. I might change this to 0.7 because I don't want it to refract too much, because later when I render it will be a bit weird. Or maybe 0.1 also I can, but not much of a difference between 0.7 and 0.1. So yeah, so I'm just gonna undo this, leave it at 0.7. I think the gloss is still a bit too, you know, dark. Okay, change this to black. If not, it won't be transparent anymore. Okay, so maybe a bit more transparent. Yeah. Right, so I'm just gonna leave it at this. I'm happy with the gloss of how it looks like right now. I'm gonna save it. I'm gonna close it. Next, you wanna do the same thing. You wanna right click, create a material instance, and then, you know, I just call it gloss balustrade because I have a different type. So yeah, I already had it. So I'm just gonna drag and drop this. In here you can see the settings are, you know, different. So it's more towards a green gloss, right? And then, you know, I've changed the Fresnel fall off and, you know, some things, even the opacity, because it's a balustrade, so it won't be the same kind as a gloss that's, you know, at the door or window. So you just keep placing all your materials. You know, you can find some more here in the materials tab under starter content if you like any of them, right? But remember, right click, create instance first, and then place them so you have the settings to change them. If you do need extra materials, you can always go back to fab, right? In here maybe, you know, you have other materials. You can search for plaster, any material that you need, right? That's for materials. But remember, if I do mention Quixel Bridge, it means fab. Okay, so that's one. And then from fab, let me show you a few things that you can get extra if you want a more nicer looking gloss. Sometimes you can download advanced gloss pack. It's a free pack. You can download it and add it to your project, right? It's this one. Okay, you can add this to your project. You can look around if you find something else. Okay, so this one is a nice one. I've used this before. There's another one, right? Some of them might not be free anymore, so yeah. So you have this. There's a twin motion pack of materials that's very nice that you can use as well. They have a few nice materials inside there. So it's this one, right? So you have this one, yeah. So if you want to, you know, get a few more materials, you can always download this and add this to your project, right? So you add to project, it will go to your project, right? So yeah, this is how you get some of the materials. You just finish adding all the gloss material to your whole project. you just save it, file, save all, right? Just give it some time, it's gonna save. So then once you're done with this, you need to go to your save project location, the folder where you have saved your project. Okay, so my one is at default, right? I left it at default. So wherever you save your project, you need to go to that folder. If you cannot find where you save your project, you just open this back again. Then maybe you click on anything in the project, right? From here you just click find, it will browse to this asset. Okay, so then you can right click on this and then you can show in Explorer. Okay, so it will open the folder where you've saved your project. So in here you just go to the content folder here. Okay, so in the content folder you need to download and paste this folder, right, called materials. Okay, so while make sure you're in the content folder, you cannot place it in any of the folder, it won't work properly. It needs to go in the content folder. So this one I can just drag and drop it here in the content folder. Okay, so now if you can see here in your project browser, right, in the content, you will see there's a new folder created called materials. You open this. Okay, right now it seems empty, so I save one more time just in case. Then I'm gonna restart my Unreal Engine. Okay, so I'm gonna close this. I'm gonna restart my Unreal Engine. So just give it some time to load. Okay, so now once you're back in your project, you can see there's in the materials folder here, you can see there's two materials. There's one called M Material Master Custom, and then one called M Master Megascan. Okay, so now what we're gonna do is, okay, so remember the material that we had downloaded before. So I'm gonna click on this. I'm gonna find this material. Okay, so this one, MI painted wall plaster. So I'm gonna find the material. Your one might be different here. You might have only two or one depending on how many layers you created for your material. So first thing is you need to open this. So okay, this texture is a bit hard to see what's happening. So I'm gonna download a new texture, right, just to see like what's happening. So I'm gonna open Quixel Bridge again. So in Quixel Bridge, I'm gonna download this material, right, high quality. Okay, so now I have my material here. I'm gonna minimize this. I'm gonna drag and drop the material. Okay, so now as you can see, the material looks quite small. Like the scale of the material is quite small, right? So I'm just gonna double click on the material to open it. In here I can on this, right, and then for the tiling of X, right, you just need to turn it on here. So the tiling of X, I'm gonna go to maybe something like 0.3, and then the tiling on Y, I'm gonna go something like 0.3. Okay, so now I have this like wall texture, right? And then in here I have the rotation angle, right? So I can rotate the texture any way I want. So if I want to bring it back to its original position, I'm just gonna click on this. It's gonna reset. Okay, so you can play around with all these settings that you want, right? So albedo tint right now is white. If I make it like this, it will become darker, right? If I change it to red, it will give it a red shade. All depends on you. So just play around with all these settings if you want, right? And then one more thing that we can do is to use our own downloaded textures. So I'm just gonna close this first. Let's close this folder. Go back to your materials folder. In here you can see we have two, right? Megascan and the master custom. Let's open the Megascan one. So let's go somewhere where we can apply this texture maybe. Okay, let's say somewhere here. Okay, so I'm just gonna drag and drop this one here. Right now you can see the texture is like so small. So we're gonna increase the size, okay? So, okay, maybe right click, okay, create a new material instance, call it MI. Master, okay, we can leave it at this. Okay, just remove this instance. Just call it ground. Okay, something like this, maybe ground. Okay, so now I'm gonna apply this instance to the flow, right? The ground here. So if I open this, now you can see if I on all these settings again, right, I can change, the U if I want. Right, so maybe the U I can go to 0.3, then V again 0.3, right? Okay, I think it's okay, right? Oh, still a bit too small. So if it's too small, you can just, increase decrease this one. So maybe 0.1, right? 0.1. So different materials, the number will be different, right? So I think here for this one, 0.1 is fine. Okay, so what we can do is we can create our own materials to use around the project, right? So let's say the Megascan library doesn't have, whatever you require to use in your project. So we're just gonna create our own. For this, you just go to a website called CG Access, right? You create a free account. Once you've created your free account, right, you just come here, you create your account, right, and then you go to free, and then you just, download whatever material you need. So, just pick any material that you like. I'm gonna go for like a wood texture, so maybe this one. I'm gonna download it, and then I'm gonna extract it. Okay, so when it will come as a raw file, like a WinRAW file. So you need to extract it. So you create a new folder, you extract it in that folder. Okay, so when you click on download at first, you're gonna find a few options for this material, right? So this one is for V-Ray, for 3ds Max, V-Ray 8K, this one 4K, 8K. This one is a JPEG, Blender, Unity, Unreal Engine. You can download the Unreal Engine one directly, but the problem is with the Unreal Engine one, you cannot control the material that much. Let's say you place this material in your scene, and then you want to make the wood planks a bit larger or longer. You won't be able to if you download the Unreal Engine one. So usually what you do is you create a texture from scratch. But because you guys are just, starting Unreal Engine, this is why I asked you to download, that texture, and then, load it in your project. So if you go back to our materials folder, you will see this one, M custom, right? So this one, I can right click on it. I can create a material instance. Okay, so if I go back inside now, I can place the instance in here. Okay, once you place the instance in here, right now it's already that material we downloaded. But if you download a different one, let's say you download a different one, maybe this one if you want. Okay, let's try this one just to show you how you can work around on it. So I'm just gonna download the JPEG 4K. Okay, just give it some time, right? So once you've downloaded and extracted this material, the folder, we need to bring this into Unreal Engine. So if you go to Unreal Engine and then you open this material, you can see we need something called a diffuse texture. We need an AO bump material, AO is ambient occlusion, so you might need an AO or bump, and then you might need glossiness or roughness. It depends on the person who created that material we downloaded. It depends on how they named it, right? So let's just check again. So I'm gonna open this folder, maybe open this. Okay, go back to the folder. Okay, so now in here you can see we need diffuse. So I'm gonna pick the diffuse. Second one, we need something called AU, right? AU or bump. So I'm gonna find the AU or bump. Okay, AU is here. Okay, bump usually, sorry. So AU we have already, which is the bump, which will go here. And then we need the glossiness map or a roughness map. So we just find glossiness. Okay, so this is free, right? You can see it doesn't have this. So I'm just gonna drag these three and drop it into my Unreal Engine folder under the texture folder in materials. So I'm gonna just drag and drop it here. Okay, so now it's imported already. Right, so let's say I wanted to texture these. Okay, this wood. So in here, I can just right click on the material. I'm going to create convert to regular texture. Right now you can see this VT is on, which is virtual texture. We don't want this. We want it to become a regular texture. So I'm going to convert to regular texture. It's going to ask me, okay, the texture size that I want to keep. So I can keep it at 4K because we downloaded a 4K one. So I'm just going to click OK. So now my free texture is loaded. Okay. Next, I'm gonna enable all these settings. Just enable them all. Okay. Okay. So now you have all of this enabled. I can just start dragging and dropping. So I'm gonna drag this and drop here. For the AO and bump, I'm going to use the AO. For the glossiness or roughness, I'm just gonna use the glossiness. Right. So now I have this material. I can just save it. Right. So now if I go back to my materials folder, you can see this instance now is a different material, right? Because when we first created the instance, it was still using that material. So now it's just an instance. So now I can drag and drop this material to this. Okay. So as you can see right now, it doesn't look that nice also. So now we're gonna start adjusting the materials. So first we're gonna adjust maybe the saturation. Okay. So maybe somewhere here, then albedo is mostly like the tint. So if I want it paler or a bit darker, right, so maybe somewhere here. Okay, now I want these these wood grains to become vertical. So in here I'm gonna rotate the UV. Okay, so here if you rotate this, you can see if I go to maybe 0.25, that's right, sorry, 0.25. Okay, so now you can see they become vertical. If I go 0.5, they're gonna make a round, right? So I'm just gonna undo, make it back 0.25. So in here I can adjust the size of the texture, right? So maybe zoom out a bit. Okay, because it was modeled inside the same family, so that's why when you apply texture to one, it's gonna apply to everything, which is okay for for this level of rendering. You don't need to custom them one by one unless you model them one by one in Revit. Okay, so next thing I'm going to